I'm at Barcelona airport. I'm flying back to the UK today. Got a lovely quiet airport here with lots of airplane things going on outside. So I just thought I'd answer some of your questions, guys. Everybody else is upstairs. I thought I'd chat to you instead of waiting upstairs with everyone. So one of the questions, and this is a really good question, and let's be quite straight speaking about it because it can occasionally happen, and it does occasionally happen. The question I got was, what happens if the investor is not happy with the property after buying it? And the example the person gave me was, for example, you've predicted around a 50 grand profit and then the market drops and the investor's not happy. Well, what happens then? Let's actually not treat people like a beginner. Let's go into this in real, with straight talk, with reality, rather than some kind of smooth okay? Let's start because ultimately it is buyer beware, but I don't want that to be the soundbite. Let's start When you are working with your investors, whether you're deal packaging, and selling them on deals, or whether you're joint venturing and you're going to buy and sell jointly together, or whether, well, that's it really. Or the only other way to work with investors that I have in my book, I've got 3 ways of working them, is deal packaging, selling on deals, joint venture where you buy and sell together, or alternatively they lend you money at a fixed interest rate, and then at that point you have to pay them back. At that point, on the third one, the fixed money, the investor doesn't really care. Well, they do care because they're nice people, but generally they don't care. They're on a fixed rate contract. It doesn't matter to them whether you make money or not because you legally have to pay them that interest. So we're back to the first 2 scenarios, either deal packaging or joint venture flipping. Let's stick on deal packaging first. What you would do first is work with the investor in advance of selling a deal to them. So don't be like, "Well, I'm going to make you rich, way!" Because if you oversell the opportunity, there's much greater chance that the investor's going to be unhappy. What to do is work with them in advance and say, "Look, property is a risky proposition. Yeah, you obviously will do compliance. You'll have insurance. You'll be a member of a property ombudsman. You'll do data protection, ICO, Information Commission Officer, data protection, and you're registered for money laundering. But the important thing here, in terms of an investor not being happy, is you being a member of a property ombudsman scheme, so that they have proper formal redress if they're not happy. So, deal packaging, I want you to talk them through in advance. Be clear with them. Look, guys, just be aware that this is not like a guarantee. Things go wrong in property. I may make a mistake. I'll try my very hardest not to. You may make a mistake. Your builders may make a mistake. The market may change. Those are all the scenarios. So when we did investor days, and we used to do a lot of investor days, and we used to say to our investors, we need you at 3 of those investor days. It wasn't so much because but it was in part because we were trying to get them to join our investor group. Of course it was, but also it was in part because we wanted them to get past the immediate shiny penny of, yeah, let's make loads of money, and actually hear that part of the presentation, which was always there, which was, be aware. Things don't always go smoothly in property, and you, if you're signing up to be one of our investors, need to have an appreciation and an understanding that you understand that happens. So first off, warn them things don't go well, always. Don't put them off, but at the same time, be frank about it. Secondly, make sure within your ability that your deal is as good as it can be in terms of its assessment. I always teach my guys to do 45 pieces of research, 5 estate agent opinions, and put them in your deal reports. Give your investor the phone numbers so that they can do their due diligence too. 20 solds, which are, Rightmove, Zoopla, Land Registry, Mouse Price, Calnea Pro. You get them from all those places. And 20 on the market. And again, Rightmove, Zoopla, you'll get them from there. At the point that you've done an average of about 45 pieces of information, the chances of you being not correct on the deal value are minimized enormously. But things still happen. So for example, we did in our first 42 flips, we sold for £402,000 more than expected. So what that means is, on average, if it was smoothed out, every property sold £9,500 more than expected. But the reality is 1 in 5 of the flips we did in those first 42, because they're the ones I've analysed, sold for a little bit less. How many were terrible? 3. And each time it was a joint venture, and each time I said to the investor, I honestly don't think you should sell. We just don't have the right buyer right now, and I think you should keep, refinance and rent it out. And they didn't follow my advice. Well, in a kindest way, that is on them. I gave them good advice, they didn't follow it. It is on them. They made a grown-up decision to sell. The rest were like, 200 quid, 100 quid, 500 quid, 1,000 quid, maybe 2.5 grand less. But 1 in 5 didn't sell. And that's normal statistics in this industry. So use those statistics and talk to your investor. And then finally, for a sourced deal, if the investor's not happy, they can put in, you need to have a formal complaints process, and they can put in a complaint to you, or they can go to the property ombudsman. Now, we had 2 people put in formal complaints to us. We did 217 deals, so that's less than 1%. 2 people put in formal complaints. 1 we resolved, a lovely guy called Grant. We resolved over a cup of tea, dead easy. It was just miscommunications and information, and it was resolved. Super easy, still friends now. The other one, I'm pretty annoyed at. I'm going to be quite blunt about it. I can't remember what the purchase price was, but it was 100 and something, right? And we said it would value up at 235,000. Now, it actually got valued up by Shawbrook, proper valuation, at 265,000. So 30 grand more than we told the investor it would value up at. And she still put in a formal complaint, like formal to the ombudsman, which was such a waste of everybody's time, quite frankly, because obviously I had to counter it. Now, the ombudsman entirely ruled in my favour because it was a good deal. And it was just, anyway, bless and breathe. But you may occasionally, if you're doing 200 deals, you may occasionally get somebody that says, and the reason that the person put the complaint in is the property was close to a railway line, and like hundreds of meters further away on the railway line there was Japanese knotweed, not in the property, not in the property boundaries, but on the railway line further down. Now that is not part necessarily, and we got the property in about November, and Japanese knotweed is dormant to that point, so it's not visible, so you wouldn't have been able to see it, so you can understand that the person's going, hang on, but at that point I don't mean it's buyer beware like they're on their own. A, it's dormant, but B, get a survey. So we try our very best, but at the same time get a survey, and then when you come to mortgage it, if one mortgage company says, we don't like the fact there's Japanese knotweed hundreds of meters away, get a mortgage company who's quite happy with the fact that there's no Japanese knotweed within the perimeter of the property. So that was essentially, I know it sounds like I'm being grumpy. Well, I was actually quite annoyed. I was pretty irritated, I have to say, on that one, because I thought it was poor, But that was basically the investor not being what you might term a professional investor, and saying, look, sometimes certain mortgage companies don't fund things and other mortgage companies do fund things. Especially when it was valued up at 30 grand more than we said it would be worth. I mean, that sort of, I have to admit, did stick in my throat. But anyway, this video is not for me to have a little grump, because, these things happen. So if your investor's really unhappy, because you're a professional member of a property ombudsman scheme, they can put a formal complaint in, and then maybe you've done something wrong, and occasionally you will make mistakes. I've definitely made mistakes, just, and you admit the mistake and you agree recompense. Or if you think, hang on, I'm sorry, I don't believe that we've done a mistake here in that particular case, and it's we've given you a deal that's worth 30 grand more than we told you it would be worth, then it goes through the formal process, and in this case the ombudsman ruled on our side. If the market drops, I'm afraid there's nothing you can do about that. That's circumstance. And your investor has bought knowing that they're in a market and the market is variable. Obviously, what I tend to do, I hope you can still hear me, aeroplanes are quite noisy right now. What I tend to do at that point is give the investor a lot of extra help behind the scenes. So say it was a source deal, and quite frankly, they're on their own afterwards, because their job was to buy the source deal. It wasn't a joint venture, so you're not getting any further profit. That your responsibility terminates at the point that it's a source deal. But if I'm truthful about it, a lot of the time, if an investor's having a bit of struggle, often it's because of their own behaviour. Sorry, it sounds very blamey. I'm not trying to be, but I'm going to be frank, because I'm speaking as a grown-up to you guys, very experienced deal sourcer. Often it's because they've done something a bit, daft. then I've often quietly behind the scenes really helped them out. It's usually because they've had disputes with builders. Well, that's got nothing to do with me because it's a source deal, but behind the scenes I tend to jump in and kind of just stick alongside them to try and make sure they're back on track, even though it's not part of my service. But I just think, well, give the guys a bit of help because they've made a few mistakes, but we all make mistakes. If the market drops, that just is the market. And that's why in a source deal, you always want to be highlighting, look, if you sell, we assess that the sale value will be around about this much. And if you rent, here's your single let rental. If it's a possible multi-let, here's your HMO or your multi-let rental. And if it's a possible service accommodation, here's your service accommodation rental. So you always try and give your investors plan A, plan B, and plan C, so that if circumstances change for them, they can be nimble. Looks like I'm boarding. Lots of love. Oh, like, subscribe, send it to a friend, and hop over to my website, thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. See you soon. Bye. Good luck to you. I hope you enjoyed that vid. There is a 101 lessons pack if you haven't downloaded it already. 102 pages. I don't stint. If you just click on the link over there, you can download it now.